for me, success actually is more about a kind of creative, spiritual feeling. And I think that's been really necessary in my practice because you can get so distracted if success is external and not internal.
Well, given that I'm a accidental artist, I actually didn't set out to have any, I didn't have any milestones, and I still don't think I do still really, like I want to achieve certain kinds of things. The thing for me is that I did not see myself as an artist for a very long time, and even working in art school, I felt somewhat uncomfortable in the, I think of artists as other people.
To be honest, I don't know that I ever charted a career path or that I've set out milestones for success. I grew up inside a context where I was fortunate enough to be taken really seriously as a writer from a very young age, to be invited to think about my writing critically, habitually, ritually, to be really part of a family in a cultural context that valued the art of storytelling. So it always felt just like kind of inevitable and natural to me. And I never questioned whether I was a writer. I indeed was a writer, and everybody affirmed that at kind of every turn. Whether I was a good writer or not, that's up for debate and changes depending on who you ask and when you might ask them.
I think that success is a really complicated phenomenon as an artist because actually, for me, success is materializing or externalizing what I feel internally, and a recognition that that's never actually going to happen or be aligned, but that maybe if I keep trying and trying and trying, I can reach a moment where that distance is a little bit less.
So for me, I've never really thought of my work in terms of a career necessarily. It's always been about, what gifts do I think I have to offer, and how can I align those with ways in which I can create better futures for my communities. In fact, I think in terms of a successful career, I've taken a lot of hits to that career because often the work that I'm trying to do is unsettling to that notion of success or to an institutional standard or framework. But I do set milestones for myself. In terms of the youth program that I run and created, a lot of the milestones had to do with just straight up making things happen within an institutional space that need to happen in order for that work to be safe. So one milestone was, fighting for youth to be generously paid to participate in a program. Another milestone was, ensuring we could smudge in an institutional space. So just small things like that, which seem kind of straightforward, but actually require a lot of labor within an institutional setting, were big milestones for my work. But yeah, my greatest measure of success, I think, is just the feedback that I get from the people that I work with through programs and different ways that I engage with people. So yeah.
I started out thinking of my work primarily in the context of activism. And I think a marker of my work for me has still been that it manages to have some kind of impact in the world. I know that one of the things that I was very proud of earlier in my career was that, when I did a film on my mother, a documentary, it was called My Mother's Place. It was looking at consciousness around gender and race in the recently post-independence context of Trinidad and Tobago. And I was very happy that that work was able to be screened in a high school. It was bought by the National Gallery of Canada. It was televised and also shown in Caribbean contexts, in Chinese Caribbean context, and in Asian American, Asian Canadian kind of context, and documentary. So it was able to be mobile, and I guess that would be a kind of marker of success of the work kind of mobility of the work, its ability to speak to different kinds of audiences?
In terms of milestones, I don't tend to think of achievement milestones inside sort of institutions of the dominant culture, or the things that we tend to think of as milestones for writers, although I have had those opportunities, and some of that has been because the work is good, and some of it has been because of the intersections of privilege that I have, or I can't possibly know. I am grateful that I don't have a desire, and I don't really think I've ever had a desire to be a famous writer. I started to write to resolve something inside of me. I still write to resolve something inside of me. I want to make sense of my own mind. I want to make sense of my world and to order my world around me in a way that imagines a different possibility. And I want to think of success as resisting the capturing of my imagination in all the sort of practical and figurative ways that our imaginations get captured. So all of the ways that we are, caught in the hustle as artists of just survival, that really limits what we can possibly explore in our creative work. But also the myths that we get told, the lies of scarcity, of inevitability, of objectivity, that leave us feeling like, why bother to imagine something different than what we have now if it isn't possible, if there isn't enough, if it's all inevitable anyhow. So that really feels to me like the success is the removal of that voice that limits my imagination and that tells me, or that is quick to dismiss the freedom that I dream up through my work as naive or impossible. It's really just the only success that really feels affirming as a cultural producer, as a creative person, is when the people that you see you back.
So often people in my life say to me, what does it feel like to have had this kind of success? And what they designate or mark as success, I'm like, oh, okay, that's not really success to me. Success to me is something so much more ephemeral and internal, if that makes sense. What I love about art is it's an ecosystem, or maybe an ecology, outside of the quantification that we've come to accept as real and valid. And what I mean by that is, oftentimes, because we live in the sort of halo of Western science, things are only real if they can become tracked and recorded and taxonomized and categorized. And what I love about being an artist is that there's so many intangible and ephemeral things that mean so much more than can ever be reduced to a number or a figure. And I think I was lucky because I grew up around artists, and I had elder artists already in my network who really taught me from a young age, like, if you are seeking to be validated by other people, or if you're waiting for confirmation of what you're saying from other people, that's gonna put you in a place where you can no longer access your creativity because you're making art for someone else and not for yourself. And I, of course, needed validation, but I found that validation came from my peers versus institutions that would say, like, you've reached this marker or this kind of rubric of what success is.